Good morning.
Greetings, this is Obi-Wan Kenobi, and I have drifted into the underworld. The Star Wars underworld. I have a bad feeling about this.
Here we go. We must go to the lower levels. The underworld.
You've taken your first step into a larger world.
You're after something.
Ben.
Since I've started the underworld, I've met so many great friends.
Chris.
I grew up in the 1990s, and mall packaging is nostalgic for me.
Dominic.
What I love most about Star Wars is that it's fun and it's all-round good times.
So, this is where the fun begins.
May the Force be with us.
This thing really moves!
Whoa! I like this!
I can't believe you came all this way to see me.
What's up, Star Wars fans, and welcome back to another episode of the Star Wars Underworld podcast. We are your source for the latest breaking Star Wars news and discussion each and every week. And this week on the show, we're going to be talking about Sasha Banks. She may not be returning as Cosca Reeves in The Mandalorian, but we have an awesome replacement in Star Wars canon for her character, none other than Snoop Dogg. So we're going to be talking about that. We're going to be sorting that out. And we're also going to be talking about some more actual news, which is a new Lego Star Wars game that has been revealed. All that, much more on this episode of the Star Wars Underworld podcast. My name is Chris, and joining me is my good friend, Mr. Dominic Jones.
Hello, Chris. Hello, Ben. Hello, everybody. Yeah, you know it's a slow news week in Star Wars when the three whitest guys you know are going to talk about Snoop Dogg. So it's going to be fun, though. It's going to be fun. That video, as we will talk about and see if you're watching, is a lot of fun. And I genuinely think the man deserves a role in Star Wars, and we'll get into why in a little bit. But yeah, I'm looking forward to talking Mandalorian Season 3, what is and isn't in there, and little Lego Star Wars never hurt anybody. It's going to be a great show.
We have some spice runners in Star Wars, but we don't have anybody who enjoys the spice. So maybe he might be a good one for that. Also here, it's Ben Hart, the Star Wars guy.
Yes, indeed, yes, and we will get into it, but yes, fully support us making Snoop Dogg canon. Or, in my opinion, he is already canon. I'll make the case for that in a minute. But I just wanted to let you guys know, in case you weren't aware, in case the audience wasn't aware, I feel like it's very important news to tell everyone that we are now officially 69 days away from the Book of Boba Fett.
Nice.
There you go.
I see our foray into teenage boy humor from a couple of weeks ago has made a return with any chance we get to say the number 69 on the show, because that's about what we deserve on this show.
Fortunately, we need less than 69 subscribers now to get to 1,000, which is our goal. I think last time we checked, we needed about 57 more subscribers. So if you haven't subscribed yet, if you're just watching the video show for the first time, definitely subscribe. And if you're listening to us, even if you don't plan to regularly watch the video show on YouTube, it would be awesome to help support us and subscribe over on YouTube. Search for the Star Wars Underworld. Scroll past that test footage from the unmade 2008 live action show Star Wars Underworld, and you'll see all of our content right after that. Please subscribe. We also want to give a shout out to our other shows on YouTube on our Culture Slate Podcast Network, and that includes Star Wars Culture, The Rollout, and Chatter Squadron. And I'll give a special shout out this week to The Rollout, because they had an awesome guest on recently, Amy Ratcliffe.
Yes, they did.
Star Wars podcaster, host, writer. She's done tons of work in fandom and officially for Lucasfilm, and she had a fantastic interview over there. So search for The Rollout on YouTube, and you will get all that awesome Amy Ratcliffe stuff over there. And then also we're on patreon.com/the SWU. You might wonder, how is it that we are able to get a booth at Celebration and able to give away so many trading cards and buttons and swag to everybody there? The answer is because of all the fantastic people who support us on Patreon. That is where we get those Republic credits for stuff like that. And of course, we got another celebration coming up. We might want to make a new banner potentially for our booth because I was cleaning out the old storage unit the other day and that thing's not looking good. So we need to buy another one of those. So please support us on patreon.com/the SWU.
It's only 5 years old at this point. It's only been around the world 3 times.
It's only been shoved into a suitcase 3 times. So patreon.com/the SWU, and you can see our pre-shows that we do. They're about 20-25 minutes long every week, and you'll get them their video just like this main show. You can find our merch at tpublic.com/user/the Star Wars Underworld. If you want to email us, we will read your emails on the show, swunderworld@gmail.com. And then finally, please review our show on Apple Podcasts and any other place that lets you leave a review. All right, that's all the plugs. Let's get right into the news.
All right. Well, we'll start this week with little Mando season 3 talk. As has been mentioned already, the top story this week when it comes to the Mandalorian is that one of the more memorable guest characters from season 2 likely won't be back next season. That's Sasha Banks, aka Mercedes Vernado, aka I can't even remember what her character's name is.
Reeves.
Awesome.
It's on the screen.
It's awesome. It's on the screen. Yeah. So I'm not looking at the screen right now. I'm trying to read the quote.
Wait, you don't watch yourself while you talk?
Oh, obviously I do, but I was just trying to read the quote. Side note: I heard somewhere that apparently plastic surgery requests have gone up during the pandemic because people keep looking at themselves on Zoom calls, because you don't actually look in a real conversation. You look at the other people, but in a Zoom call you look at yourself. Anyways, that's just a fun.
I've heard of putting Post-it note over your camera, over your portion of the screen, just to keep you from.
Let's do this here. I got one.
I really need to do this.
There we go. Now I will be looking at you guys, and I can tell you about all the plastic surgery you guys need. No, you don't. You're fine. You look lovely.
I don't know about that.
All right. Here's what Sasha Banks said about the possibility of being back for season 3. She said, "First of all, thanks for trying to get that out, but I'm not on the next season. It was incredible being on The Mandalorian, on Star Wars, to be on a franchise that is so huge and so loved. Just look at the reception from fans outside of the WWE universe. It was the best feeling of all time. The projection of that show was overwhelming. I legit felt like I was in a galaxy so far, far away. I felt like I was on a different planet. It was something I will always take with me, and I took so much of what I learned from acting with me, or from acting with them and being with so many great stars to WWE. It really helped my confidence as well when I came back from doing The Mandalorian 2 years ago. It was such a learning curve, and something I wasn't expecting. But now I'm in this whole new Hollywood world, and it's going amazingly. I'm so excited for the fans. I can't wait for my fans to see what's next." So that was an interview with the Bleacher Report, which is a sports website. Yeah, so there it is. She seems to not be back for season 3. I will say, it wouldn't shock me if she still comes back some way, somehow. They've only been filming for a little while here. A lot can change. A lot can happen. Emails may have been forgot to have been sent. Contracts may be being worked on. Negotiations may be being had. I'm not ruling it out yet, I will admit. It seems unlikely, but I'm not ruling it out yet. But what do you guys think? How do you feel about Sasha Banks seemingly not being back for season 3?
I feel like this is kind of big news as far as speculation about the plot of The Mandalorian, because, it seemed like they were setting up something really big with like OG Mandalorian clad with Bo-Katan and Casca Reeves and everybody. And so this means it means one of three things. One, we're going to have to wait longer than we anticipated to see that stuff happen, which kind of annoys me because that's what I really want to see. So I'm like, oh gosh, I have to wait a whole nother year to see that pay off. So I'm hoping that's not the answer. The other potential thing that could be happening is that it's still going to happen. They're just not going to include her character in it, which to me makes no sense. Like to me, like in Star Wars, when there's like a kind of sidekick like character that is kind of alongside a character that's more of a bigger name, usually that character stays around until it's explained what happens to them, like they die or something or become a traitor. So it doesn't make sense if they're going to be showing Bo-Katan not to show Casca Reeves too. So that could be the case, though. That would be a little weird. I don't know why they would do that, but that makes me again lean towards maybe it's going to take longer for us to see what's going to happen. And of course, the final option, and this is the option that I hope doesn't happen, and I don't think will, is that plot's just never going to get paid off. They're just done with it. It's just something that happened. It was just something to make us excited for season 2, and then we're not going to see any more of it. I hope that doesn't happen.
Ben?
Yeah, it is like coming out of season 2, going into season 3. You're like, seems like there would be not just the Mandalorians we have in the show, Casca, Bo-Katan, the other guy, I can't remember his name.
Was that the Mercedes one or
no? Sasha is Mercedes.
Okay.
Sasha Banks is not her real name.
Oh, her real name is Mercedes.
Yes.
Yeah. That's how she's credited in Mandalorian.
Yeah. Okay. Of course.
Revelations.
Yeah, because The Rock's real name is The Rock, and every wrestler ever, that's their real name. Yeah, okay. That makes sense.
Hulk Hogan, obviously, real name.
Yeah, that's totally his name. Hulk Hogan.
Totally,
yeah.
obviously.
Axe Woves, thank you, Rick. Axe Woves. Who's played by a guy I was just rewatching the James Bond movies, and he showed up in that actor. He's everywhere.
Cool.
Anyway, to get to my point here, I think like coming out of that, it's like, okay, we're gonna see more Mandalorians. We're having the Darksaber showing up. We're going into this. We're getting a fleshing out of the story and a fleshing out of the Mandalorian story specifically. You would think like, okay, maybe we're gonna show the Mandalore. We're gonna see more Mandalorians show up, and it's weird that Casca doesn't seemingly going to be part of that, and it could just mean that she's just not coming back, and there's nowhere place for her because there's going to be a whole bunch of other Mandalorians we're going to see, and we've already gotten her. We've got her as a character. We're going to introduce to maybe more, or maybe there won't be any of them, and maybe it will be something completely different. Which I'm like, what could that be? Because it feels like season 2 was going in a very specific direction, and what other direction could we go? Not saying that I'm not open to different things and on new things, but who knows. But someone else on our Twitter, I believe, pointed out the fact, it was Sean Schutz, says she also denied being on the latter episodes of season 2, just saying. In the middle of season 2, she said she wasn't going to be back for the finale, and she was. So I'm not saying anything, but I'm saying something here. Who knows?
I'm glad you brought that up, Ben, because I felt like there was something last season that where one of the cast members said they were somewhere or that they weren't going to be in it and then showed up in it, obviously. And I think that's what I was remembering was her saying, oh, yeah, I'm done for this year. And then, boom, there she was. This is this brings up, though, like you said, Chris, this is very interesting. This brings up some very interesting sort of thoughts for what next season might be, and what I'm kind of thinking we might see in season 3 is a bit of a regression for Din Djarin's character.
I agree,
because we saw so much growth over the course of seasons 1 and 2, and he started to take these steps out of being a Mandalorian and into being, or out of being not a Mandalorian, a bounty hunter, and more into the world of actual Mandalorians and of Jedi and all of that. And all of that was motivated by Grogu. And once he passes Grogu on to Luke, I kind of wonder if he might just sort of go, well, that's my adventure. That's my time. I've done my good thing. I'm backing out. I'm done. I'm done. Let me go back to what I'm good at, which is being a bounty hunter. And it wouldn't surprise me if the next time we see Din Djarin, be it in Mandalorian season 3 or in the Book of Boba Fett, which I think is likely the next place we'll actually see him. I believe that's been rumored and all sorts of things, and it just kind of makes sense. I think we'll see him as a bounty hunter, and he'll be kind of more of the character we saw in episode 1 of the show, and less the character who was risking everything for his little green friend.
I completely agree with that. Honestly, that's kind of what I've had in mind for a while now. Is like, I think a perfect place to pick up Din Djarin after that season 2 finale is him regressing, going back to his old ways. Maybe we pick up with him and he's tracking down a bounty. He's going after some other blue guy, because we can't have that. We're not going to have that blue guy back for reasons. But who knows? Like, I think a great way to kind of like tie it all together is like, okay, we're going back and he's going back to his old ways, but like there's still like something. And I'm not saying that's going to stay that way. I think season 3 will be about him rapidly going from where he was in season 1 to where he ends up probably at the end of season 3, which is probably maybe ruling Mandalore. I don't know, but like I think he's gonna run away from that because he doesn't want it. He doesn't want the Darksaber. Why would he? He's just probably gonna have it. I don't know. I could see him just being packed away somewhere, and he doesn't want it, or maybe he's using it to track down bounties. He doesn't want it, and they're like, "Oh, our king! No, get away from me! I don't want to be your king."
It wouldn't surprise me. I think likely the arc of season 3 will be he'll start off back as a bounty hunter, back as just some guy who just goes around the galaxy doing odd jobs here and there that often involve murdering people for money. And at some point fairly early on in the season, we'll see him go back to Razor Crest 2.0 or wherever he's hanging out these days, and buried away in that whatever he calls home will be the Darksaber, and he'll have just kind of left it there as if he's trying to forget it. And over the course of the season, it will be about him accepting that as his role in the galaxy. And it wouldn't surprise me if the end of the season is him picking it back up again and saying, "All right, let's do this. Here we go." And then season 4 returns us to the Mandalorian storyline proper. That's not to say that Bo-Katan or any other Mandalorians couldn't show up and try and pressure him in season 3, try and pressure him into taking up the Darksaber or into giving up the Darksaber. That might be an option as well. I think that's all likely to happen, but I think the arc of season 3 is likely, going from not wanting it to accepting it at the end, and that puts us on an interesting trajectory for season 4, because I do very much believe there will be a season 4. I do not believe those rumors that are out there that the show will end after season 3. They're not ending the most popular streaming series in the world right now.
Well, I think if I remember it correctly, the rumor was that it would end as we know it. So it would be like kind of rebranded into another show that is a sequel to the current show. So basically, like, this would be the last season of The Mandalorian because it's focusing on Din, and that fits perfectly with this outline that you're putting forth, Dominic. And then season 4 would essentially be season 1 of a bigger show that kind of probably takes the story threads from Ahsoka and from The Mandalorian and anything else that's come out in that era and puts them together into one big show with kind of a new name and new branding. And then that's when the big Mandalorian war thing is going to happen.
I do believe that will happen eventually.
But you think it's going to be branded as Mando season 4?
No, I think there's going to be Mando season 4.
And then that.
And 5.
Okay.
And then we'll get to this.
Oh, we're going to have to wait 3 years.
We're going to have to wait more than 3 years. The way things go.
Occupy myself somehow.
They've got to build out this universe. They've got to do a lot. If they're doing anything like, if they're using, we keep talking about the Marvel model. If they are doing that, Like Marvel did all they're doing a lot, but it took 10 years to culminate in something really huge. I think that if they're culminating in, let's throw in Thrawn and all this stuff, we're doing a big Heir to the Empire Redux, whatever. That's gonna take some time. So I think a realistic is 5-ish years where we really get into that. Not to say not to say there's gonna be like stuff happening on the way. Obviously, we're gonna have a lot of different shows. Probably Thrawn will show up at some point, and we'll have some stuff.
So they're allowed to take 5 years to do this, but there's one condition: it has to have Mara Jade in it. Otherwise, they're not.
Yeah,
I'll forgive them.
I think we have this year we have Book of Boba Fett. Next year we have Mando season 3. Year after that, Ahsoka. Maybe Mando season 4. Maybe something else.
You don't think Ahsoka is coming out till 2024?
2023.
2023. Okay.
Yeah, because I don't think it starts shooting till next year.
It does.
In fact, I'm pretty confident it doesn't start shooting till next year.
Yeah.
So I think they shoot it next year. It comes out 2023 alongside either a 4th season of Mandalorian or something else. Rangers revamped, some other kind of show, the Cobb Vanth Adventures.
That's what they should
season
just call it. They should just call it Rangers Revamped. That sounds great.
It never came out in the first place, but it's revamped.
And it stars Sasha Mercedes Reeves.
Yeah. Yeah, take her wrestling name, her real name, and her character name. Just smash them all together.
That SMR, you just need an Annie in there, and then you got this.
But so I think that big crossover event that people are talking about, that's a ways away. I think that's a ways away, and I think we've got a lot to get through before we get there. The other thing I wonder about this Sasha Banks story is this is maybe a little bit trying to galaxy brain it a little bit, but people often say about the Book of Boba Fett that it's Mando season 2.5, and it's shot in the same place as The Mandalorian. Sure. It's coming out at the same time as The Mandalorian, roughly in a year. And it's made by the same people who made The Mandalorian. Is there a chance that Sasha Banks just thinks, I'm not in the next season of The Mandalorian, the one that's coming out this December. And so she's telling us she's not in the Book of Boba Fett.
Oh, yeah, because
but maybe she'll be in the next one. Season 4, a.k.a. season 3, which comes
internally,
out next year.
It's just season 4 to them.
That could make that. Yeah, that makes perfect sense. Because it's like, I mean, did the Book of Boba Fett have a different code name? I think it did.
Oh yeah. They all have different code names, I think.
Yeah, it's not that Huckleberry. It's something else.
Yeah, it's something. I feel like we knew it at one point, but
yeah, I heard that. But that makes sense. I think that could be what's going on.
Yeah,
because that would have been Book of Boba Fett would have been filming a while ago. Like that would have been filming earlier this year, I think.
Buccaneer is the code name for Book.
There it is.
Buccaneer, yes.
There it is. So, maybe. We'll see how it goes.
Or I mean, what if it's the opposite? I've heard a couple of people say that, like, what if she's saying, I'm not going to be in Mandalorian season 3, but she shows up in Book of Boba Fett.
Yeah,
she's technically telling the truth.
There you go. Just yeah. I think
we're on to you. We're on to you. This is. I'm just curious.
I mean, I'll ask you guys what Jesse wants to know about this theory of mine. Is there something there, or should we make a relax?
Oh man, I got to make a new relax now.
Never relax ever.
What do I have? I got Post-it notes.
There you go. Yeah, you can make a relax.
I still got the pen, but it's a different pen. It's morphed into a different pen.
So this is my my theory of what season, as we've been talking about it. This is sort of formulated in my head. This is my theory for how Din Djarin's story is going to play out over the course of the next little while. We'll see him pop up in Book of Boba in some way. He'll be the bounty hunter we knew at the beginning of season 1. And when we see him, we'll be kind of like, hey, what's up with Din? Why is he acting like that? Then we'll get into Mando season 3. He'll continue along that way. We'll get that scene I was talking about, or something equivalent to it, where you see that he's trying to leave the Darksaber behind. He's trying to forget it, doesn't want to see it. But he gets forced back into it because Bo-Katan, as many people have theorized, is going to be the villain for season 3, and she's going to try and come and take it and claim it from him. And over the course of that battle / adventure that the two of them engage in, he'll come to realize the lessons that he learned when he was hanging out with this little fella on my t-shirt here, Grogu, that he has to get involved and he has to go on his own adventure. And it will be at that point when he takes up the Darksaber in the season 3 finale and says, let's do this, leading us into season 4. And who knows where it'll go from there. But that's what I think, how I think things are going to play out. Yeah. Now, granted, I've been very wrong before. See Cad Bane, and we'll see. So we'll see. Maybe I'm wrong, but I don't know. I think that would be an interesting trajectory. I would be intrigued in that story arc. Yes. Or by that story arc.
Same.
Yeah. I mean, let's keep talking about Mando season 3, because we're in sort of an interesting place with it, right? Because season 2 ended, and I feel like everybody needed some time to process that. So much happened in season 2.
Right.
And at this point, in some ways, it feels like we should be getting ready for season 3. But season 3 is still, I'm going to say, at least a year away. So how are you guys feeling about, Mandalorian season 3, what you're sort of hoping for from it? I mean, we talked about this a little bit, but where are you guys at sort of in your thought process with that season?
I mean, I want them to just continue the things that they're hinting at. Like, there's a lot going on. I want them to continue. I don't really know if I want them to kind of like take a step back. I want them to keep ramping things up. I feel like one of these shows, unless they're going to start making films off of these story plots, needs to be like the Avengers of the Disney Plus cinematic small screen universe Star Wars thing. And so right now it feels like the Mandalorian is poised to be that, because they're using it as the backdoor pilot. Like, it's definitely the backdoor pilot for Ahsoka. All of the stuff that's gonna be happening in the Ahsoka show was teased in the Mandalorian, and then it was going to be the backdoor pilot for Rangers of the New Republic, but then that's may not happen. So
I still think that show happens. Not as it was, but I think it happens.
Yeah. I hope it does, or just something else similar happens. More stuff. So, like, I feel like the Mandalorian. I feel like there needs to be something that comes every year, or at least every other year, that's like the Avengers series of films, that kind of then just kind of like resets everything and brings everything kind of together. Because otherwise, you might end up in a situation where it starts getting kind of confusing, because you're going to have all these different shows. And after a while, like, we know the chronology because they're coming out in a certain order and we're watching them as they're coming out. But it might get kind of confusing if you're going back and saying, like, okay, so I have to watch the first 2 seasons of The Mandalorian first, but then I need to watch Boba Fett, then I need to watch Ahsoka, but then I need to go back and watch season 3 of The Mandalorian. Like, it might start getting kind of confusing if there's not like a one show that's kind of like the tentpole show that like everything else kind of like gets under. So I want Mandalorian season 3 to be big. I want it to kind of include plots that are moved forward by the other shows, and be like that main thing. And I don't want it to just kind of go off by itself and kind of like forget about all of this stuff that's going on.
I kind of feel like season 3, though. I hear what you're saying, and I definitely I agree with a lot of it. But I kind of feel like season 3 can't be that yet, because only one other show will have come out by the time it comes out. It will only have had Book of Boba Fett. I kind of feel like season 4 is more what you're describing. I feel like season 3, we'll have had Book of Boba Fett, but we won't have seen Ahsoka yet. We won't have seen anything from Rangers or any other spin-off events or spin-off shows. It'll come out sometime fall of next year or end of next year. And we'll have the shows that'll have come out in the interim will have been things like Andor and Kenobi that are largely unrelated. Maybe they'll be related. Who knows? Stranger things have happened. But I expect them to be largely unrelated. And so I feel like I do feel like season 3 is going to be a little bit more, or has the potential to be. I won't say is going to be, but it has the potential to be a little bit more insular, because season 2, I think, was that big event season. Because that was the season that laid the groundwork for all of these other things. That's the one that laid the groundwork for Book of Boba Fett, for Ahsoka. It was laying the groundwork for Rangers. Let's call a spade, and look at what was going on with the Cara Dune storyline. And it feels like there's a couple more stories that could come out of that. Possibly, my favorite sort of idea for how to revamp Rangers is to put Cobb Vanth in the lead and make it the Cobb Vanth show, along with Carson Teva. But there, because he's another character that feels like he's well suited or poised for a spinoff of some kind. And so I feel like season 2 was that big event season that brought in all these pieces, and now we kind of need to see all those pieces on their own for a little bit, so that when you bring them together in that Avengers style event, it feels earned and it feels special, because that's what those Avengers movies do. We see all the Avengers come together, and then we see them off in their own movies doing their own things for a couple of years, and then they come back for another event. So I think coming off of that event season in season 2, we'll get Book of Boba Fett, we'll get Mando season 3 that will be more focused on Din's storyline, while still hopefully moving the whole thing forward with some Bo-Katan action and everything. And Cosca Reeves, why not? And then we'll have Ahsoka before we get to season 4, and maybe even some Rangers or something else. And then season 4 can start to bring everything back together and sort of start pointing us in the direction of the Grand Admiral, who we know is out there, who will likely have made his debut in the Ahsoka show, but will probably still remain pretty nebulous for a little while.
And you're going to have a whole team that can then come in, because you don't know how many characters the Ahsoka show is going to pick up. Certainly it's not just going to be Ahsoka and Thrawn. You could have Ezra, you could have Sabine, you could have Garazeb, Aurelius.
Hera.
So many options.
Chopper. I think all the shows will do that as well with Book of Boba. It's not just going to be Boba Fett and Fennec Shan for 6 or 8 episodes or however long that thing is. I think we'll see. We'll get to know some other recurring characters on that show that maybe could pop up in there as well.
Yeah, you can't help but keep going back to the Marvel comparison. It's cliche at this point, but it's easy to do. And I think Marvel movies, as kind of like something new that's never really been done before, is kind of a template to like doing stuff like this, where there's TV movies, whatever. I think with those movies, it's like, yes, they started out as like individual things, and Iron Man, Captain America, whatever, but eventually it just became, now it's just one big anthology series. It's just a bunch of things, and if you miss one movie, you may miss something important, and you may be confused. Like the first time I watched the Avengers, I didn't know what was going on for half of it, because I hadn't seen the previous movies. That was the first one I knew. I'm like, oh, who are these Thor and Loki? What's going on here? But that was the way it was. And either you just buy into it and say, okay, I don't know what's going on here, but this is good, or you take the time to watch everything. I think going forward, after season 2, just my general thoughts, like season 2, I think, is some of the best Star Wars I've ever seen. I think season 2 was so great, and it wasn't just the storytelling. I think it obviously is setting this up. It's setting up what we're about to see, especially next year with all these different shows. It's obviously trying to expand the scope of The Mandalorian, which is great. I think it did it in a very tasteful way. I think all the cameos, I know people have opinions about that, and it's fine. Personally, I think they were all done extremely well. I think they all fit with the story, and I think it works, and I think it didn't feel forced, and you go with that and you're like, I want to see more of this. Or it could go on. If you were just watching this in a bubble, it could easily go like, oh yeah, Din's gonna go on another adventure next season. That's it. You're not expecting the book of Boba Fett. You're not expecting any of this stuff. It's just these characters just happen to intersect with this character. But going forward, go ahead.
I was gonna say Disney Plus needs to make a playlist of here's how you watch the Mando-verse in order: season 1, season 2, Book of Boba Fett, season 3. Ahsoka,
but I think
Boba 2.
what I'm getting at is I think release order is probably going to be where it's at.
Yes,
I think just like with the MCU basically, even though there is oh yeah, some of them are out of timeline, like even Black Widow, for example, they just came out. It's set earlier in the timeline, but the post-credit scene is still set in the new timeline. In the spoil it, but it's
post
the newest post Endgame.
So if you does that still fit? If you were to watch it in the correct spot in the timeline, would it then spoil things that you haven't seen yet?
Yes, it spoils something massive. Yeah. So
nice job.
really, with the MCU, they're meant to be watched in release order. If you can ignore the post-credit scenes sometimes, but most of the time it's okay, this is just part of it. It's in the storyline. It's meant to be watched when it's released. And they know, that's just the way it is. It's not like Star Wars, where Star Wars is oh, this movie can be set wherever. Star Wars more functions almost like real world history. You watch a movie, you're oh, when is this set? The 1920s? It's set in 19 ABY, all this kind of stuff. You're asking those questions.
By the way, Ben's video quality is from the 1920s right now.
Okay, all right.
At least it's not black and white. At least he's not gone to.
You can still hear me, can't you?
Yes, we can hear you.
Yeah.
Okay.
Although your voice is. No, right now we're seeing just black screen with white title cards with exclamation points, and there's this music, this piano music playing in the background.
This freeze frame of Ben that we've got here does vaguely look like somebody created a Ben Hart version of the Scream.
Yeah.
I wish I could see this. Jeez.
You'll have to look back at 37 minutes into the live stream.
Oh my gosh.
You guys, this is worth one of these. Ben Hart, the Star Wars guy.
Yes.
Ben Hart, the Star Wars guy.
Star Wars rules.
This is momentous. This is exciting. Why, hello there, Ben.
Ben Hart, the Star Wars guy.
He is the founder of the Star Wars Underworld, Mr. Ben Hart. How's it going, everybody? Man.
That's a full one.
Of course. Oh, I don't go in for the half measures. We go for the full
just go all the way.
full song.
Why not?
When it's my turn, when I play it. What were we talking about? I don't even know
Gotta love
anymore.
it derailing the conversation like that.
Yeah. But no, I think the future, like you were saying, Ben, the Marvel movies, you watch them in order. Doesn't matter how they technically fit into the timeline. You watch them in the order they come out in, and I think that'll be the case for Mandalorian. I think, and as it should be. I think when you're going to do a cross movie thing or a cross series thing that connects as much as they want these things to. You do have to make it as easy as possible for the audience to go along with it, which is to say, all right, this show comes after this show comes after this show. Here it is. Here's your Disney Plus playlist. Enjoy.
Yeah. I'm just shocked that Marvel's doing the flashback order.
Yeah.
It's infected Marvel. Star Wars is infected Marvel.
Yeah. They infect each other these days. That's just where we're at now. But yeah, it's interesting things that are going on with these shows, and it's going to be fun to follow along over the next couple of years as they continue to grow and evolve. And yeah, I don't think we're anywhere near done with this stuff. I think there's more spinoffs to come. I think shows that are being billed as limited right now are going to turn out to be multiple seasons. Wouldn't shock me if we get multiple seasons of Book of Boba. Wouldn't shock me if we get multiple seasons of Ahsoka. Wouldn't shock me if we get multiple seasons of Rangers when that ever happens. It wouldn't shock me if we get more shows. It wouldn't shock me if we get a Cobb Vanth show or a Luke Skywalker show, or even characters we haven't met yet that will get their own shows. I think this is going to just get bigger and bigger as we go, and there may be more and more time between seasons of The Mandalorian, the show. As we're already seeing, it's going to wind up being about 2 years between season 2 and season 3. That may be par for the course going forward, 2+ years between shows, which is not unheard of in the television streaming landscape today. But in the interim, in the time between, we'll see all these other shows that feature characters that cross over into the Mandalorian and the other shows, and it'll create this weird, wonderful Marvel-esque quilt that becomes Star Wars.
Yeah. I think they've got 30 years, 25 years to fill. I mean, they can keep going with this for a very long time and continue the story. And I would love to see it. I'm here for it, obviously.
Yeah. We'd have a problem if Ben wasn't here for it. That's when you've gone off the rails, is when you lose Ben.
Yeah, seriously.
All right, let's keep it moving here. Move off of the Sasha Banks story, and I know this isn't the order the news is in our show notes, but
how dare you! I
put
put it in specific order.
I'm so confused now.
This is too good a link not to make, which is to say, Star Wars is all about family. And I think we should keep the news in the family. And you may or may not know this, but Sasha Banks has a pretty famous cousin by the name of Snoop Doggy Dogg. Like I said, the whitest people are going to talk about Snoop Dogg. And so, Ben, I really wish your video was better, because that looked hilarious even in the 1920s.
No, it was embarrassing. I shouldn't have done it. I'm gonna end up like flashing something offensive, and then it'll be bad. It's a good thing you can't see this. All right.
All right. Let's talk about this. So, you may have seen this week. Snoop Dogg has been wearing Mandalorian armor, and unfortunately, it's not because he's going to be on the Mandalorian season 3, although that would be glorious, and as we will talk about, should happen. But it's because he's part of a new rap supergroup called Mount Westmore, and look at that. Look at it.
There you go.
Glorious. Look at these pictures. These are that could be from the Mandalorian. Those pictures that we're looking at here, these could be from the Mandalorian. That last one less so, but the other two definitely. But they put out their first song this week. It's called Big Subwoofer, and let's play a clip. And for those of you listening, you'll hear part of the song, but just know you have to look this up and watch this video. Here we go. So another one of those moments where you're like, I never would have guessed this would happen on our show. Never would have
I am
guessed,
shocked. I'm
loving it.
That you found a clip that long that you didn't have to bleep out something from
I know. I was
I opened
surprised
it up
too.
and I'm like, look, I've been on the internet long enough. I'm not offended by too much language. I'm like, wow, okay, they fit a lot into a little bit of time.
Yeah. If it had gone on about 5 seconds more. If you know the song. Yeah.
Yeah, don't play this out loud. Use earbuds if you're on family or fellow workers.
So wait, I have a question. Did this reveal something here? Did this music video reveal something about Disney and canon and how Avatar and Star Wars are in the same universe?
It feels like it.
Yeah. You kind of wonder.
There's definitely an Avatar character in this music video.
Yeah, and there's in the one shot with Ice Cube, he's definitely sitting next to a Nikto, like just walks straight out of Return of the Jedi. Like that could be Jedi Master I'm a Gundai live action, sitting there with Ice Cube.
Well, let's look at the file name of the video. If it's featuring I'm a Gundai, we know.
Yeah, there you go.
There you go.
Maybe he's the 5th member of Mount Westmore. But in addition to the actual song, they put out like this like other promo thing for it that I think you watch this next clip. This could be from the Mandalorian. Like just look at it. Look at Snoop in this next clip and tell me he doesn't belong in season 3.
World full of vultures looking over my shoulder. My kind words are colder.
Right?
Dang.
That could be in season 3.
There you go.
That should be in season 3.
I think Sasha Banks just wasn't called in to do this music video. I think that's what she was talking about.
Yeah, seriously.
Wow.
He should be in season
great.
3. Make it happen. Like you look at all the stunt casting they've done in Star Wars over the years. You had Daniel Craig as a stormtrooper. I think Tom Hardy was a stormtrooper. Why can't we get Snoop as a Mandalorian? You don't have to really, he doesn't have to be a main character. But like in one of these like big crowd scenes that involves lots of Mandalorian, just have him in the armor from the video, standing off to the side, and maybe you get like one close-up reaction shot of him like nodding along, especially if Cosca Reeves is saying something. You should be like, yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
And then maybe get him into like an action scene or two, because as you saw there, he
And there's just a bit of smoke billowing from under the helmet,
Yes.
Yeah, smoke that spice.
Of course. Now, believe it or not, this is not the first time Snoop Dogg has done a Star Wars thing.
Isn't.
Do you guys remember? This was like I guess this was about 10 years ago. There was an Adidas commercial that tied in, I think, with the World Cup, because it's a soccer thing. And they did this thing where they added in a bunch of celebrities to the Mos Eisley Cantina. And among them is, of course, Snoop Dogg. And we've got a clip from that as well. This one will be fun to not just watch, but also listen to for everybody that's listening on Spotify or Apple.
Han Solo. I'm captain of the Millennium Falcon.
Bartender. What's your problem?
He doesn't like you.
I don't like him.
This little one's not worth the effort.
I don't like you either.
Well, I don't like you either, fool. Oh, you want some? Step up.
I love that clip so
Great.
much.
I love it.
Good stuff.
Oh
Good stuff. So there you go. For those of you that
Snoop
have,
is canon, all right? He's
Yeah, yeah.
canon.
And
he's been in 2 different versions of the Mos Eisley Cantina. He's canon.
Yeah. Just have Pablo just make a little note in a visual dictionary somewhere, and we'll be good to go. Good to go.
And that was a Skywalker too. Wow.
I want to hear him say "You are a Palpatine," because that would just that might make the line work.
Oh yeah.
Yo, fool, you're a Palpatine. I think I sounded like the Godfather.
Yeah, that was
How
more.
did that happen? How did Snoop become the Godfather? What is happening?
Welcome to the family.
Oh my
dear.
goodness. All right, I'm moving us along because you guys are about to get us in trouble.
Yeah.
Move along. Okay, so I've already changed up the show notes on us once. Now I'm just going to complain about them because Ben put together the show notes as he does every week, and he does a great job. And when I saw this, my thought was, really, are we going to have to do this every week for the next 12 weeks? Because the next thing we have here is products for week 2 of Bring Home the Bounty have been officially revealed.
Look, it's on StarWars.com. We're talking about it, okay? That's not technically true all the time. But, okay, this week it's true.
Fair enough.
There's some good stuff.
Fair enough. All right. So look, I'm sharing my screen for everybody that's watching it. So look, we're looking at StarWars.com. I haven't seen these. I have no idea what any of them are. So we'll
Dominic
find
Jones
out.
reacts to Star Wars merchandise.
So we got a Ahsoka Tano and Grogu limited print by Acme Archives. It's,
That's nice.
You know, very nice artistic rendition of a scene from the Jedi from episode 5 of season 2 of The Mandalorian. Very nice, and you can see what's her name? The convoy. Morai. You can see Morai up there in the corner. That's cool. Very, very cool. All right, what have we got here? Mandalorian blanket from Barefoot Dreams. All right, that looks
Could
soft.
they have unwrapped it so we could see it?
I know, really. I mean, it looks
Look
soft
at
and
the bow
fun.
on it.
Yeah,
I mean, it's a cool looking bow. It's got the mythosaur skull on it. But
What's
like,
an
come on.
Indolore? That's all I can read on it. Indolore.
It looks soft and cozy. So I can't complain. All right, what's next? All right. Star Wars Attack of the Clones Padme Amidala Premier Collection statue by Diamond Select. That's pretty cool. Pretty cool. Padme in the Geonosian arena, blaster at the ready. I like it.
That's nice.
We got Star Wars holiday workout gear by Gold Sheep. I'm always down for some Star Wars holiday themed crossovers. I like these. These look cool.
If we get 2,000 subscribers by Christmas, I'll wear it on stream.
There you go. We got a Darksaber Kyber crystal necklace by Rock Love. They make great stuff. That's pretty cool. Cool.
Okay, side note here.
Cool.
I never thought about the idea that there's a kyber crystal in the Darksaber and how that works, being that it's like a different type of lightsaber that's shaped and has a different color. How does that work?
I haven't thought about that either. Wow.
But they thought about it here because they put a kyber crystal. This is really cool, by the way. Wow. Okay. I have many thoughts now.
Yeah, that is cool. That's a story I'm sure we'll get someday in some Disney Plus series. That's the prequel to The Mandalorian that they make.
The Tar Vizsla.
Yeah.
Movie.
The Tar Vizsla Adventures. Yeah. All right. That was cool. We don't have to do that every week, but that was
yes,
cool.
we do.
Now it's like a challenge. Now it's like because I make the choice about what goes in the notes, and I'm like, I'm just gonna put it in the notes. I'm gonna do it.
All right. Next up, we got this is pretty cool. The Star Wars Visions digital soundtracks have all been released.
Nice.
You can stream these now. I think they're all up on the usual places where you stream your music, and
to buy, I believe.
And
I don't know if these physical copies out yet, but you can definitely download it.
Yeah. And they've put out a music video based on Tatooine Rhapsody, which is pretty cool as well.
That's great.
That's cool.
That's great.
There you go. I mean, there's so much about Visions that deserves to be highlighted and spotlighted, and the music is absolutely one of those. And yeah, for all 9 episodes too. So that's pretty dang cool. So go listen to some good Star Wars music when you got some time. Next up, new Lego Star Wars video game. No, not that one. This is Lego Star Wars Castaways, which is coming to the Apple Arcade on a day that I don't know because we took November 19th. There it is. So this game is described by StarWars.com. It's the first online social action adventure Lego Star Wars game. Players build and customize their own in-game Lego minifigure character. The heroes of their own Star Wars adventures. Gamers will visit a mysterious new planet and meet and team up with friends, other quote-unquote castaways, race microfighters, and experience classic Star Wars moments. They'll also unlock hundreds of collectible pieces to customize their minifigure and solve a mystery to save this community of castaways on the ruins of an ancient civilization. Throughout, players can battle foes, solve puzzles, and hone skills in battle and flight simulators. Those looking to share their fun can hang out with their friends in the social hub and communicate through Lego emotes, as well as challenge parents, siblings, and friends in the Hippodrome.
Ooh.
Okay. I assume that involves a hippopotamus, but I don't know. Or join forces to complete quests and earn rewards. I gotta be honest. This is pretty fun. This sounds pretty fun for a mobile game.
Yeah,
I'm on board. I'm on
It
board.
it kind of takes that feature they introduced early on in Lego Star Wars games, where you could kind of create your own character in the game, and kind of like turns that into a online stuff. I think anything online, I think is really cool. This sounds like a really cool concept. Side note, I had a free subscription because I recently got a new Apple product. I got a free subscription to Apple Arcade, and then I waited through the absolute last minute to use it. It was going to expire like the next day, and I'm like, oh, I'm going to go try out that new Lego Star Wars Battles game. And I'm like, all right, whatever. It's a new game. I became addicted to it for several hours, just for the record. All right. I was skeptical, and it was actually like legitimately fun. You play online against other people. You were like little battle things, and you're on Hoth or Jakku or whatever. Really fun. So like, if this is like a different version of that, where you're like running around with other people, like I'm on board. I will resubscribe to Apple Arcade and pay money this time to play this.
Nice. Well, Ben, you just reminded me that I too recently got a new Apple product, but I have not yet used my free 3 months of Apple Arcade, and so I think I have until the end of the year. So I will be using that for this, because this sounds like it might be a fun little way to kill some time between stuff. Yeah, I don't think I'm going to sit down and carve out a couple hours for it, but if I've got some time to kill, maybe. And yeah, it is weird and a shame that it's only for Apple. It should be for
it is like, because like honestly, they could like, after doing the Lego Star Wars Battles, like I'm bad with subscriptions. I can't like leave a subscription because I'll just forget about it, and then like 6 months later they'd be like, oh god, look at this giant credit card bill.
I think I'm still subscribed to the EA video game subscription that I signed up for this summer.
Like Lego Star Wars Battles, like I would like, some apps can be pretty expensive. You can pay upwards $5-10 for like an app, normally speaking. I would pay it for that game. Like it was that enjoyable for me. So like I hope this is in the same vein.
Yeah. I'm gonna try to see if we can stream this on like YouTube or Twitch for all the people
that'd be great.
Don't have Apple. That's my goal. Cool. That may not happen, but I'm going to try.
Yeah. All right, keeping it moving. We're gonna keep moving through this news list at a pretty good click here. File this under no news is good news. Disney announced this week that they are moving the release dates of several new movies, including a bunch of Marvel movies, and the cousin of the Star Wars series, the Indiana Jones movie, the 5th movie, has been pushed back basically a year. Normally we don't really cover indie stuff on this show because honestly I can't be bothered.
Also, it's technically not Star Wars.
And it's not Star Wars, yeah. But it is oddly comforting, given the weird roller coaster of Star Wars movie news for the last couple of years, with stuff being delayed and canceled and never announced, and directors maybe not working on things, and writers that quit because they got a Netflix deal, and yada yada yada. It's oddly comforting to, after all of that, to have there be this big shakeup in the release schedule, and to have one of the few things that remains constant through it all be Star Wars Rogue Squadron, which has not had its release date moved. They seem, according to Jordan Mazin of Cinelinx, they are casting. They're doing early casting for the show, and or for the movie, and it's expected to start shooting next year. And I take comfort in that, because everything else got moved and Star Wars is staying the same.
Well, they just gave themselves so much time to do it. Like, that announcement was so far in advance. I think that's how they're getting away with it.
Well, and also Indiana Jones 5 has had its own set of problems. None bigger than which Harrison Ford injured himself again. He broke his arm on the set. So that happened. So they've for the past few weeks or few months, they've been shooting around him, and he's just now gotten back to actually like doing stuff. And there's actually new photos of him and Phoebe Waller-Bridge out doing stuff.
They shouldn't have brought that. They shouldn't have brought that giant rock back. That was a mistake.
Yeah, that was just a
practical effects, really.
Yeah.
But
Guys,
what's weird
almost 80.
is essentially for the first time ever, unless I'm missing something here. Actually, I am missing something. What I was going to say is this is the first time ever there has been a Star Wars movie and an Indiana Jones movie in the same year. That's not true.
Yeah.
We had the Clone Wars movie and Kingdom of the Crystal Skull in the same year, 2008.
Oh
That was a fun year at the movie theater. I remember that.
Wild.
Forgot that was the same year.
That was pretty cool. That was pretty cool. Well, there you go. That is the news. Everything from Mandalorian to Lego Star Wars to Star Wars Visions to nothing changing with the movies, because the world we live in now is that is news, and a little Snoop Dogg just for fun. But we're not done yet. We're going to get to some listener feedback here. We're going to get to some listener feedback. As always, if you want to send in your thoughts on everything that's going on in Star Wars, you can send them to swunderworld@gmail.com, and we will eventually get to them. And we've got a couple of good ones to get to this week. So let's dive in. Just going to have a sip of water before.
I thought you were about to dive into that glass of water. I'm like, all right, you're actually diving in.
The good thing about like video stuff is that you can like do something like, say, take a drink, and people know. They're not expecting you to just say something. So it's fine.
You know why the pause is there.
Yeah. All right. So the first one is from regular email, digital correspondence. I don't know. Regular writer into the show, Joel Davis, who writes, "Hello, Underworld. Today, I want to give some speculation on the Mandalorian, or more broadly, the Mando-verse, and how I think, with some clues from Bad Batch, where the story might be going. Because I have a theory that the Mando-verse may retcon or give broader context to a line in The Force Awakens. That line being, perhaps Leader Snoke should have considered a clone army." That's my Adam Driver impression. As Kylo Ren said to Hux at the start of the movie. Now, I do think that line, perhaps Leader Snoke should have considered a clone. I don't know why I can't do it again.
As long as you don't talk about Lena Dunham, you're fine.
Perhaps Leader Snoke should have considered a clone army. I'm so sorry, Adam, if for some reason
1 million
you happened to hear this. Was meant to be a nod to the prequels and the clone army. However, with the EU, everything gets retconned eventually, and original intent has no meaning. So how do I think this line will get retconned? Well, I think that in order to do that, we must look at Tim Zahn's 1991 classic, Heir to the Empire, and a little place called Mount Tantus. Long story short, Mount Tantus was one of many secret facilities that stores many of the Emperor's prized possessions, one of them being a large cloning facility that was used by Thrawn in the Thrawn trilogy in order to create his own clone army in order to quickly revamp the Empire. The Empire's forces, so that he can take back the galaxy from the New Republic. In the Bad Batch, we see a mountain-like facility at the end of the first season that looks very similar to Mount Tantus, where Nala Se is going to be with the Imperial cloners. So my theory is that the Mandalorian Thrawn might, like in Legends, use this bit of cloning technology left behind by the fallen Empire in order to rebuild Imperial forces in the known galaxy. One thing I think, or at least hope, is that we might get some indication, even if it's subtle, to just how Palpatine is viewing the situation with Thrawn and Gideon from Exegol during this time period. For I do think Thrawn is more or less doing what he's doing of his own volition and not Palpatine's bidding. Of course, I think Filoni and Favreau are going to tie in things with the sequel trilogy in some way and make it all one big cohesive universe. So how could this be done? Hard to say. My personal hope is that it seems Mando-verse is a loose adaptation of the Thrawn trilogy, and maybe the role of Joruus C'baoth, I never know how to pronounce that name, an insane clone Jedi Thrawn uses for his battle meditations powers, could be played by none other than Snoke himself. Snoke him if you got him. I could see maybe Snoke being somewhere, somewhat of a test for Thrawn. If he succeeds, Palpatine could then reveal him to Thrawn and bring him back into the fold. If he fails, then no skin off Palpatine's decaying bones. He can then focus on the Imperial facilities already in the unknown regions, led by Ray Sloan and Brendal Hux. That's, of course, from the Aftermath books, and build from there with the army made up of kidnapped children. Now, do I think this could happen? Probably not, but I would like it to, just for some more direct sequel tie-ins, or at the very least, I want some sort of subtle indicator on how Palpatine views the situation happening in the known galaxy during the Mandalorian, and whether or not he sees Thrawn as an ally or an enemy. It could be as subtle as cutting away to a hooded person after Thrawn's death, and then saying eerily, "Everything is oh wait, no. Everything is proceeding as our master has foreseen." I wanted to do a Palpatine impression, or something.
Someone get Sam Witwer.
Yeah. Or something like that. Just something, but I digress. However, I do still think that the line, "Perhaps Leader Snoke should have considered a clone army," is going to mean whatever events play out in the Mando-verse, that Thrawn will try to make a clone army for himself and retake the galaxy as he did in Legends. But what do you think? Will the line from The Force Awakens get retconned, as all lines eventually do, and Thrawn will use a clone army? Will Snoke appear before Thrawn as a test to see if he is worthy to rejoin the Emperor's ranks? Will there be any sort of subtle connection to see just how Palpatine views Gideon's and Thrawn's actions? Love to hear your thoughts. Love the podcast and love the new format, Joel Davis. Well, thank you, Joel. Take it away, guys.
Yeah,
What do
I
you think?
mean, I always assumed that line about the clone army was referring to the Grand Army of the Republic.
Yeah.
So I don't necessarily see it as something that needs to be retconned, if I'm understanding that correctly. But that being said, I think that this should still happen, Joel. Like, I think this is a really good plot that I think that people who are being paid to come up with plots, it'd be hard for them to come up with something better. I think this is really cool. And I'd love to see it. And not just the whole like cloning thing and how it kind of then makes a line mean more in the films, but also just to see Thrawn do some really cool stuff. Because I think any plots that involve Thrawn, I think, are going to be winners. He was such a great villain in Rebels. He was one of my favorite characters in Rebels. Whenever he was on screen, whenever there was an episode with him, you knew it was going to be a good episode. They were all great. And, he's one of the few Star Wars characters that's not like a big character like Darth Vader that's like carrying his own series in the over in the publishing universe with those Thrawn books that Tim Zahn continues to make. So yeah, I want to see this. I want to see more of Thrawn. I want to see more stuff done with cloning. I think they're hinting at it. I don't think all this stuff going on with Dr. Pershing and Grogu is just like things to like move the plot along. And I think that there's something more to all of that that's going to pay off at some point.
Mm-hmm. Ben, what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, obviously we are heading in the direction of something to do with cloning. We have now more than one show hinting at something.
Yeah.
There's something there. And I think I like
Sorry, Ben. You're saying we shouldn't make a relax?
Look, I'm not saying. Look, I never relax about Star Wars.
I relax for this week.
Never relax about Star Wars. All right, Star Wars is not a relaxing thing. It's serious business. So as I was saying, if I can even remember what I was saying, but cloning, it's happening. Obviously, something's going on. But I like the idea. I agree with Chris. I don't think it really needs a retcon. I don't think they're really retconning anything.
Mm-hmm.
I like the idea of like you have 30 years of time in between, Return of the Jedi and The Force Awakens. A lot's happened. We know the First Order is out there somewhere, but like, what are they doing? What, just because one Imperial faction went into the unknown regions and went and built up their forces, and Snoke did all his stuff, doesn't mean that Thrawn couldn't be out there, and Thrawn could have his own endgame and have his own ideas about how to bring the Empire back, and maybe that's through cloning, and that would be directly taken from the books. That's something that happens. Thrawn needs an army. He needs a bunch of ships, and he needs people to man them and make clones really quick, and that's what he does in the Thrawn trilogy. And that's a really neat idea, and they could adapt that somehow, perhaps putting in some things. And I like the idea, like, we love that line in The Force Awakens. Perhaps neither so could have considered using a clone army. Like, obviously it's a reference to the prequels, or at least maybe in J.J. Abrams' mind, is like a reference to the Clone Wars as referenced in A New Hope. But it could also be just like cloning is a thing in this galaxy. And maybe it didn't die with the destruction of Kamino. We obviously know it didn't, because Nala Se and those guys in Mount Tantus, they're doing something. We know Moff Gideon is trying to get blood from Grogu for some reason. There's something happening here. I think it leads to Thrawn, obviously, and it also leads to something about cloning. And, bringing that all back around, I think, is great.
Yeah. One thing I find really interesting about Mandalorian and thinking about it in this context is we always talk, as all of the cloning talk seems to be around Baby Yoda. And it's all about his blood and the M count in his blood. And so it seems that the focus is on cloning Jedi, cloning Sith, cloning Force-sensitive beings to then also be Force-sensitive, which we know somebody seems to eventually succeed at, because that's what happens with Palpatine in The Rise of Skywalker. It's a clone body of containing his original essence somehow through dark science cloning secrets only the Sith knew. And so I think you have when you bring in Thrawn and you bring in what Thrawn's goals are. One thing I always like in the Thrawn books is the idea that Thrawn and Palpatine only work together when it suits both of them. These two don't actually share the same goals. But they'll work together when it's mutually beneficial. And so I like the idea that Thrawn would like to clone someone who's Force sensitive for some reason, and Palpatine would also like to do it. We know why. And so they wind up working together on this. And at some point, I think Thrawn will have to break from Palpatine. And, Thrawn always seems to be worried about some threat out in the unknown regions. And in the old books, it was later suggested that was the Vong. In the new books, which I'm not caught up on in the slightest, I still haven't read the conclusion to the Rebels tie-in trilogy, but it's the Grisk, I believe. It's sort of suggested that that's who he's worried about. And maybe they'll say after that, no, actually he's worried about something else that's really out there. The Vong still exist or something. But he might be interested in having some Force-sensitive beings on his side that he can control. And in the books, there was talk about, there are certain people in Chiss culture who are the only ones who know how to navigate through hyperspace or navigate through the unknown regions or something like that. I don't remember it very well. And those beings are called Skywalkers, which I got to be honest, Timzon, you got a little too cute there. Yeah, a little too cute there. Yeah, a little too cute there. But anyways, so I think those two, I think they're working together on this whole cloning a Force-sensitive being. But at some point, their desires are going to diverge, because it seems that Dr. Pershing and his crew are veering in the direction of a Snoke. It very much looked like a proto-Snoke in a jar in season 2. And I suspect that's not really what Thrawn's ultimate goals are. And so we'll see. We'll see where they wind up, how things balance out.
I don't think Thrawn is working on, let's find a way to bring the Emperor back. I would think Thrawn would be like, oh, good, the Emperor's gone. I don't have to worry about him. And I think
he might go, oh, that guy I sometimes work with when our goals are aligned, who had unlimited resources. It kind of sucks that he's not around, because we kind of have a similarly aligned goals. And Thrawn is in the unknown regions, Exegol, unknown regions. Maybe they crossed paths at some point, post Jedi, pre Mando-verse.
I think Thrawn. I think what Thrawn does will inadvertently perhaps cause what Palpatine does in the future. It will be like, oh, Thrawn is working on cloning technology. He's working on furthering it from where we left in the Clone Wars. But then it will be like, oh, okay, Palpatine's out there and he's trying to survive. what's Thrawn doing? And he'll pick up on that thread, and it will lead into that, and it will at least. I'm curious how far they will go with that. Obviously, I'm not sure we're gonna get to all the way to like, oh yeah, here's all this stuff with Palpatine and his son / clone and all this kind of stuff. I'm not sure how far they will go into that, but
No.
I'm not opposed to it necessarily, but I think that's not maybe necessarily a story that the Mando-verse will tell.
I mean, do you feel like, if they were to tell it right now, those movies just came out, but if they were to tell it down the road in a Mando-verse series like 5 to 10 years from now, then you're going to get the, wow, this is nostalgic for the sequels. Because like if you're a kid, okay, let's say you're like 12 years old when The Force Awakens comes out, and this comes out 5 years from now, at that point you're going to be like 23, 24. It's like your childhood. You're twice as old, and now you're seeing stuff tied into your childhood movies. Like, that would be kind of cool.
Yeah. It does make me wonder how that aspect of the plot of The Mandalorian will end, right? Because the thing about Star Wars is that no story is ever really an ending. And every ending, to be really corny, every ending is a new beginning. And we had a really sort of visceral example of that last year with the end of the Clone Wars, right? Like the way that show ends, it's the end of the Clone Wars, but it's a new beginning with both the Bad Batch, and it's a new beginning for Rex and Ahsoka. We don't necessarily know what their stories are yet, but or will be in that time, in that immediate aftermath yet. But we eventually will see that, I think. And every show kind of ends that way. The shows that we've seen that have ended on their own terms, like Rebels, ends in a way that kind of sets up the sequel show. And it makes me wonder, I hadn't really considered Palpatine ever really appearing in this until we were reading this email. And I kind of wonder if if Mandalorian, the Mando-verse as we know it, ends with the big climactic crossover event that brings together all the shows in a battle against Mandalorians versus Thrawn. If that ends and Dr. Pershing or some other Imperial allied person escapes the battle, and there's a scene after after everybody's celebrating on Mandalore, Din Djarin is sitting there as ruler, and a new day is dawning, and the New Republic's there, and the Jedi are there, and everybody's standing together, holding hands, singing Kumbaya. Dr. Pershing just slips away with a little thumb drive of information. And he gets into a shuttle, and he disappears, and he reappears on a planet where lightning comes out of the ground.
Oh.
And he wanders in, and he finds someone who maybe has the Palpatine voice, and hands him over, and it says something like, "Long have I waited for this next phase of the operation. Execute Order 67." And
we find out he says that to everyone
was.
that shows up on Exco. Long have I waited.
Yeah. By the way, that was about my worst Palpatine impression of all time. So
long have I waited for my grandchild. Wait, you're not my grandchild.
Yeah. Oh well, okay. Give me the information. And maybe you end similar to how you ended Clone Wars with a shot of Vader. Maybe you end the Mando-verse with a shot of Palpatine. Or maybe you have that scene and then you click back to Din and everybody all celebrating Return of the Jedi style, and there's kind of a sort of a sinister undertone to it of, yes, okay, this is a hopeful moment, but we know that there's a big threat that's still out there, and for as good as everything seems now, bad stuff is still coming. Bad-ish is still out there.
You know how the Clone Wars series, kind of like everything we were missing from the prequels, got put into the Clone Wars series?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, this could be that for the sequels. Like, this could add some of that lore, some of that plot. I mean, you could even have some of the characters that got snubbed on screen show up towards the end of the Mando-verse, and it could be a stronger thing with that tail end kind of cutting eventually into the sequel era.
Yeah. I mean, I don't think Mando will end close enough to the sequel era to get that a lot, but maybe, I don't know, maybe you have Akbar or
Yeah.
a young Holdo or
Oh
you
my
know,
god, no.
Snap
You put
Wexley as a 20-something. I don't know.
you cannot have Akbar. The more Akbar you put in, he goes from being a C level character to a B level to an A level, and then it gets worse and worse and worse. What happened to him?
Oh my. But I'm wondering, like, will we see, like, how far could this go? Like, foreseeably could go on for years and years and years, like real time. Like, we could see seasons and seasons and seasons of shows set in this era just continue. But eventually, you're going to want to see kind of like an end. Going back to the Marvel model, you want to see an end game. You want to see a big, everything comes together and it's a big finish. But where does it go after that? And, could we see like maybe multiple shows have their series finale at the same time, and then it jumps forward in time? You go 10, 15 years to the future at that point. Maybe it's, it's not right on top of Force Awakens, but it's getting closer to it. And you can kind of start filling in those gaps and foreseeably have characters that were in the sequel trilogy show up, and kind of the timeline makes sense.
Well, you say, Endgame was this sort of, climactic end point, which it was, absolutely was. But buried within that movie is Loki grabbing the old Tesseract and disappearing when he wasn't supposed to, which spun off a show that wound up introducing the villain for the next phase of whatever in the Marvel universe. And that could be this, you could have your big climactic event, because I think instead of all the shows having series finales around the same time, I think they will all have their individual series finale all leading up to the big event that we were talking about earlier that will serve as the series finale for all of them. Maybe some big, like, maybe they go real big and do like a 12, 15 episode thing. Or maybe they go real small and do a 4 episode thing. Who knows? But they do that. And buried within that could be a scene like we were talking about with Dr. Pershing or somebody akin to that, making a little getaway to Exegol with some information that or maybe they don't even go to Exegol. Maybe they just allude that that's where they're going. And so then that link is there. So if for some reason they never did anything else on screen in that era, that link is there, that takes us from Jedi to Mando-verse to sequel. But it also leaves the door open for lots of other stories in there to further flesh out the later part of that era. Because remember, Mando is only 5 years after Jedi. There's still 25 years until Force Awakens. There's a long way to go.
That's true.
And even if the Mando-verse itself lasts 5 years, that's still 20 years until the Force Awakens. So this could end in a way that alludes to the Force Awakens, but we're still barely in the era of when Ochi of Bestoon is running around trying to murder Rey's parents, and Luke and Lando are chasing him apparently.
Right.
Like all that stuff in that book presumably is either after the Mando-verse storyline, or it's sort of coinciding with presumably the end of it.
Yeah, because it's like she looked like she was about, what would you say, 5 in those flashbacks, and so that would put that. Let's say Rey's 20. That would put.
Yeah, I think she's supposed to be 19, and
she's 19,
or is she 21? One of those two.
Was she partaking in death sticks? That's the only way we would know.
I mean, we don't know what she was drinking in that bottle. We think it was water.
Right. Right. That could have been some Jawa juice. Yeah. So if it's 25 years after Return of the Jedi, and then that would have taken place 14 years. The flashback would have been 14 years before that. That would put it at 11-ish. So that would be about 6 years after Mando.
Yeah. So, I mean, the Mando-verse could easily cover 6 years worth of story. We don't know how much time it has covered thus far. It could have been 6 months. It could have been 3 years for all we know. But there's all I'm saying is that the time between Return of the Jedi and Force Awakens is huge, and we shouldn't ask Mando-verse to cover that entire gap or strengthen all of those links. It should do some of that work to strengthen those links. But it's so far away that even if you wanted it to do all of them, it doesn't really make sense that it would. And so there should be other stories also told on screen. I'm not saying leave this to the books or the comics. I'm saying do these things on screen. But those stories, there should be later stories that come down the line in our universe that fill in the story down the line in the Star Wars universe.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you very much for that email, Joel. Let's
Yeah.
go on to the next one. This one comes from Dr. Holocron. Dr. Holocron writes, "Hello, Dominic and pals," which, by the way, is the correct way to begin all emails to this show. Again, swunderworld@gmail.com. That is the email address, and this is the correct way to begin all emails. "Hello, Dominic and pals. This is Dr. Holocron, and I've got another question for you." There's an exclamation point there, so I really went for it with the "you." What am I saying? This one is concerning the eventual live action debut of Grand Admiral Thrawn. So we're just sticking with the theme. Since we know that Thrawn is likely to show up in at least one of the upcoming Star Wars series, in which one do you think Thrawn is going to show up first? I've seen a lot of people saying that he could make his grand entrance in either Ahsoka or season 3 of The Mandalorian, but I've also got my own theory. What if Thrawn ends up making his live action debut in the Andor series?
Ooh.
Personally, I think this would make sense since Andor is set during the same time frame as Rebels. We also know that Thrawn was trying to figure out the identity of Fulcrum, and that Cassian himself was at one point a Fulcrum. Thrawn wouldn't even have to be the central villain in the show. He could just be the person who the show's Imperial villain could be reporting to. But what are some other shows you guys think we could have Thrawn make his first appearance? Whichever one he appears in, he had better be played by John Mulaney. That would be
unexpected, but not unwarranted.
Look, I still maintain that we were robbed of Vince Vaughn playing Thrawn, and I think we should bring back the Vaughn for Thrawn campaign. Any chance we get. I can't even remember. Oh yeah, I started that because people were saying Robert Downey Jr. should play Thrawn. And it was like, oh, so we're just taking people that worked with Jon Favreau and saying that he should be Thrawn. So yeah, Vince Vaughn. Why not? Vaughn
Makes
for
sense.
Thrawn. Hashtag it. I like the idea of. I believe that Thrawn will make his appearance in the Ahsoka show. Let me put that out there. I think he will make his first appearance in the Ahsoka show. We'll hear about him in Mando season 3 in some way. It'll be teased in there. Maybe even we'll get a hint at it in Book of Boba. But Ahsoka seems the logical place for him to debut. I'm not opposed to it happening in Andor necessarily, but I also don't know if it's necessary.
Yeah, I kind of almost think it's more likely we would see him in Kenobi.
Really?
Like, yeah, I could see that happening. Because
I have a hard time picturing that one. Lay it out for us.
Well, yeah, I mean, Kenobi's probably going to be dealing with the Empire at some point.
True.
In that show. So you're going to have Imperials, and Thrawn is a good option to be around at that time. So
yeah.
I think the Andor show feels to me like it's going to be almost more insular. Like it's going to be more focused on kind of like him and his family, and kind of like the rebellion just can't be too big at that time. It's too early for the rebellion to be big. It doesn't get big till later. The rebellion barely exists in the Rebels era. We see it kind of coming together there. And so, whereas Kenobi's a big player, so you could have him involved with Thrawn, and it's not, he's going to draw out the biggest players against him. So I can see that happening being more likely.
Yeah.
I obviously as a hardcore Star Wars fan, like Thrawn showing up in Cassian or Kenobi or any of these shows, like I would love it. I think it would work. I think obviously with the timeline, I think it would work fine. But you also have to look at this from a I don't know, like a Disney executive perspective, a producer perspective of like, we're doing these different shows, and yes, they're set in different timelines. Yes, they're supposed to be all connected, but at the same time, you want people to understand where things set in the timeline, and pulling Thrawn into, say, Cassian could confuse people. I think you still have to be conscious of like the casual viewer of like, oh, Cassian is set. He's going to be fighting stormtroopers just like Mando does. And Thrawn shows up, and then Thrawn shows up in, in the Mandalorian season 3, and people are like, wait a minute, I thought Cassian was. I thought Cassian died in Rogue One, which is set before, and it brings up the whole debate about people watching Solo and then getting to the end and like, oh, I thought this was set between 3 and 4, but clearly this is set prior to the Phantom Menace before Darth Maul died. Like, that's the only thing that makes sense.
I gotta be honest.
Oh, no.
The more I was really worried about that sort of thing for a long time. That whole like, people are gonna be confused. They're gonna be confused. The more I think about it, the more I think that's just something we argue amongst ourselves about as Star Wars fans of like, what do people follow? Do people understand? I think most people who go and see a Star Wars movie or go and see a Star Wars show that aren't super into it the way we are, that are just looking for some fun entertainment, they're really just willing to roll with it and go with it. And my sort of proof, quote unquote, for this, and it's not really, there's no real like empirical evidence of this, but it's just kind of a feeling I've gotten, is that I always feel like people who aren't super into Star Wars, when they talk about the new films, they always say, yeah, my favorite is Rogue One. And that was the movie I was so concerned going into that movie that people wouldn't understand, because it was coming right on the heels of Force Awakens.
Right.
I thought people were going to think it was a sequel. It drops you in that opening scene with almost no context, and then there's the Death Star. There's all this stuff, and you're sort of you're left to work out that it's a prequel to Star Wars. And I still think all Star Wars movies should have a crawl, but they went into that movie without a crawl, without the thing that gives you the context, and it wound up being super popular. And I feel like a lot of people who are just sort of casually into Star Wars point at that movie as like, that's the one I really like, in part because it was a different look at the Star Wars universe, in part because it was, I think it was all new characters, and so you were given a chance to get to know these characters from the beginning and grow with them and love them from the beginning of their story. You weren't having to think back to a movie that you'd seen previously, and you weren't comparing them to another portrayal of that character, either by the same actor or a different one. And so I think you could throw Thrawn into Andor and people would just roll with it and just go, yeah, okay, sure, he's the villain in this and in that, got it. That said, as just for my own preferences, I don't need every single thing to connect, and fair. I think there's greatness that comes from connections, and there's also greatness that comes from just sort of going like, yeah, let's let this be its own thing and not force the connections any more than occur naturally. And I feel like putting Thrawn in Andor, from what we know of the show right now, feels like it might be forcing it a little bit. And we should just let Andor be Andor instead of saying, this is where we'll introduce the villain of the other thing. Same with Kenobi, quite frankly. I think we should just let Kenobi be Kenobi. It's already going to have connections coming out the wazoo to other things with the prequels and the original trilogy and probably the Clone Wars as well. And you can bet Cassian will have those too. I keep calling it Cassian. I think Andor is a dumb title. Prince
Cassian.
Yeah.
And the Voyage of the Dawn Treader. Let's go.
Yeah, I guess the point I'm making is if it's fun, like if it makes for a good story, do it. But
if
don't
it's
feel
funny, do it.
If it's funny, do it.
If it's an all-around good time, do it.
Do it, yeah. But don't feel you have to. Don't feel you have to. You can create a new villain for Cassian to fight. Create your own iconic Thrawn villain. And
I think I really wouldn't want
Thrawn level
Thrawn to
villain.
be a huge presence in those shows, either one of them. I think they'll have their own villains. Obviously, Kenobi's going to have a whole bunch of other stuff to deal with. You know, I think I would be comfortable with like a small cameo, a la Maul, just showing up for one scene and showing up, and that's fine.
Yeah.
And to kind of go off your point earlier about, you know, I think there is this weird thing where you will talk to people. You talk to us weirdos. We go out in the real world and we talk to quote unquote normal people that just see Star Wars as another movie franchise. It's something different to them. And I come across this a lot of what order are you supposed to watch them Star Wars movies on? You know, what's going on there? I don't
All
even
casual
know what
fans sound like that.
Yeah,
well, the ones in Ben's neck of the woods do.
yeah, actually, this is not an exaggeration. But I think there is kind of this whole idea of like Star Wars is a franchise that was made out of order, and people kind of like latch onto that and go like, well, what are they doing with Star Wars? And I don't really get it because I never took the time to actually like look into it. I think most people that watch it will like, okay, it's on Disney Plus. I watched them all in order. I get it. You know, I took the time. There's a lot of people that are super casual that have only seen the movies like maybe once, and they're going to be confused. They're always going to be confused because they really don't care. That's fine. That's their thing. You know, when they're complaining, it's not like a complaint that we would have. It's just like whatever. It's just a random observation. I think that we put a lot of stock into those people because like we talk to those people all the time, and we're like, I want everyone to be able to enjoy this. I think stories work and stuff like this work best when it's accessible to everyone. That's what was so great about The Mandalorian, is that everyone was in on it. It was super new and fresh. It wasn't really connected to anything until it got to season 2. But even then, it was this thing that was just like accessible to everyone. And I want every Star Wars story to be that. I want everyone to experience Star Wars like I do and appreciate it. But it's not going to work. I think from a devil's advocate point of view, from a Disney Lucasfilm point of view, I think they think about these things and go like, okay, how do we do this? And are we sending mixed messages? Are we doing this right? If we put this character here, will it make sense? Will it not make sense? Personally, I don't think it's that big of a deal. I agree with you that like, yeah, just do it. It works. Put Maul in Solo. Yeah, it's weird, but it works. People will just accept it, or they won't. They have the internet. They have a computer in there. If they don't want to look it up, they can just look it up. All right, they can figure it out.
Yeah. Well, and the thing is with Maul and Solo, right? There was supposed to be a sequel that would have, you know, picked up on that, fleshed it out, and they probably would have explained it in there.
Right.
And the people that were really confused would have came out of Solo and went, I don't really get how that guy's still alive. That's strange. But then probably just went about their lives and, you know, had things gone differently. Then 2 years later, they would have gone back to the theater and seen Solo and been like, yeah, I still don't quite get how that red guy was back in it, how Maul was back. And then they would have seen Solo too, and boom, there's the answer. There's more story explained out there. And to be fair, I do think there is a limit to how much you can ask a general audience to just roll with it. You know, it's, you know, saying, oh yeah, this character's actually still alive. I think people can roll with it. Saying this movie's actually here in the timeline, people can roll with it. When you start requiring people to have read a book to understand things, that's a bit of an issue.
You can't, using an example that's probably going to come up, is you can't throw Ezra Bridger into any of these shows and go like, oh, you know about this. You've seen Ezra before, wink, wink. Everyone's watched Rebels. No, not everyone's watched Rebels. He will be a new character, just like Ahsoka was to The Mandalorian. He will be a new character to most of the audience probably, and you'll have to reintroduce him, and that's how it works. You know, it's just how it's done. Ahsoka, I think, was done beautifully. I think she's a new character. She's this Jedi character, and you know, it works as long as you just do it well. You can connect the audience, and everything's connected. And people that have seen that stuff, they're like, "Oh my god, it's Ahsoka!" And everyone's like, "Oh, who's Ahsoka? What's going on here?" Like, it's all how you do it.
It's Obi-Wan in A New Hope, right? when A New Hope comes out, he's just this strange, mysterious character with a backstory that's alluded to, and you get just enough of it to be able to understand his role in the new story. And I think we got that with Ahsoka, and I think we'll see more of her backstory explored in her own show. And I think we'll get that with Ezra on this show. They'll get enough of a hint at who he was that the people that know will go, yes, I remember Rebels well. And the people that don't go, okay, he was a Jedi that knew Ahsoka back in the day. And he disappeared, and she's been looking for him. Got it. And we'll be able to roll from there.
Yeah.
So there it is. Anyways, the point is, I think it's unlikely that Thrawn shows up in Andor. I think
20 minutes later.
I think he's going to be focus of the Mando-verse. I've seen in the chat, there's been some talk about post-credit scenes with Thrawn. Much in the same way that the post-credit scene for season 2 set up Book of Boba Fett by having Boba go back to the palace. Maybe season 3 will have a post-credit scene as well that sets up the Ahsoka show, which will likely be the next thing after season 3. And maybe it's Thrawn. Maybe it's Ezra.
Yeah.
Probably it's Ahsoka if it happens, but maybe it's somebody else. Who knows?
It's Mina Masood playing Thrawn. Just misdirection the whole time.
What a twist!
Yeah. Good stuff. Well, that's what we got for emails. That's where we'll leave it. So if you want to send in an email, swunderworld@gmail.com. That's the place to send it. Again, swunderworld@gmail.com. You can respond to something we said on the show. You can send us a theory, or maybe you think there's something in Star Wars that we should be talking about that we aren't. Send it in. swunderworld@gmail.com. And with that, we will begin to wrap things up for this week.
All right, so that'll conclude this episode of the Star Wars Underworld podcast. We want to thank everybody for watching on YouTube and listening on your favorite podcast apps. That's right, we are on YouTube. There's a lot that goes on that is visual in the show. We still try to keep it listenable if you're just listening to the audio feed, so we describe things, but there's definitely a lot more to the experience if you're watching it. So if you haven't, definitely go over to YouTube, check out our show. When you have a chance to watch something, search for the Star Wars Underworld. You'll find us there on YouTube, and of course make sure you're subscribed to our social media channels at the SWU is where you can find us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram for all of the programming updates and breaking Star Wars news throughout the week. Dominic, thank you so much for hosting tonight.
It was my pleasure, as always. Great fun talking about everything, speculating about season 3 of The Mandalorian and beyond. And just how many days was it again, Ben? How many nice days until the Book of Boba Fett and we continue that story?
69.
I can't wait to get to the end of December and get into the show again. But
nice.
We got a long way to go before we get there. And hey, I think we're starting to enter into the phase where we might be due for a trailer, and that'll be pretty fun too. I
would like that very much, please, and thank you.
Yeah, but also no rush. Whenever you feel like it, Disney, Lucasfilm.
No, now.
Now. Been a great show. Can't wait to do all this again in 7 days' time.
And of course, you can follow Dominic on social media at DominicJ25. Ben, thank you so much for hosting as well.
Oh, it was a pleasure as always, and surprisingly light on news, but we still managed to make a whole shot of it, which was great. Thanks to Snoop Dogg for giving us a lot of great material and bringing back some old favorites.
Star Wars Underworld senior hip hop correspondent Snoop Dogg.
Yep, it's a thing, and Snoop Dogg, the bounty hunter, the spice smuggler, however, he's canon now. It's official. Just put him in there. I'm assuming. I mean, he's got a freaking suit of Mandalorian armor. Come on, it's right there. He probably wears the thing all the time. Just ask him to come to set, and he'll be there. So can't wait for Mandalorian season 3 starring Snoop Dogg. Pedro Pascal, watch out.
And of course, you can follow Ben on social media at Ben Hart with no E. You can follow me at Seek3PO. Also, want to give a shout out to our awesome engineer, Chad, who helps put all the visuals together that you see on the screen. You can follow him on social media at ChadBTI. Let's see. We're so close to 1,000 subs. Definitely subscribe if you have that ability. We're almost there, and definitely if you're watching the video, like it, leave a comment as well. That helps other people find it on YouTube. Tomorrow we've got a new episode of The Rollout, so that might be today for some of you, going up on YouTube, and then Saturday a new episode, Chatter Squadron, and then a little convor told me that the episode of Star Wars Culture next week on Wednesday is going to be pretty awesome. You're not going to want to miss that.
Interesting.
Old friend of the network coming on. So that's going to be super cool. So stay tuned for an announcement from those guys over at Star Wars Culture. You can find all their stuff by searching for Star Wars Culture and scrolling down till you find their channel in YouTube. We're on Patreon. Patreon.com/TheSWU. That's where you can find those pre-shows. And that is where you can support us financially. Any amount that Patreon accepts from you will get you that exclusive content. Our TeePublic link is tpublic.com/user/the Star Wars Underworld. That is where you can get that Star Wars Underworld logo merch, Radio Razor Crest merch, and a little bit more is left as well over there. So you can find that over at TeePublic. And Dominic just mentioned it, but we'll mention it again because we get such great emails from you guys. swunderworld@gmail.com. swunderworld@gmail.com is that 10-year-old email address that is still kicking, where you can send us your listener feedback for us to talk about on the show. And finally, definitely leave us a review on Apple Podcasts or any apps that lets you do that. So that is it. We'll be back next week with another show. But until then, for Ben, Dominic, and all the other fantastic folks we have here at the Star Wars Underworld, my name is Chris, and may the Force be with you.
It's a wrap.